What's up, guys? My name is Nacho97, here to bring you some more Dead by Daylight killer gameplay as the Dockta. Now in this video I'm doing things a little bit differently. I want to go over a little in-depth guide to the Doctor. So really quick, while I have time, I want to talk about perks and add-ons that you should and shouldn't use. Now, typically at higher ranks, actually I'm going to go ahead and back out of this because I don't want any interruptions here. Now, overcharge is an essential for the Doctor. Now, when a survivor gets mad, the skill checks on their screen are absolutely insane. That usually a skill check remains static in the middle of the screen, and the dot goes from side to side like a pendulum. You have to time it just right to get either a good or a great skill check. If you land a bad skill check on a generator or on a heal interaction or on a sabotage interaction, then it creates a little disturbance. It alerts the Doctor, knowing that you're there. It shows him exactly what happened, shows him that you failed the skill check. If you land a good one, basically nothing happens. If you land a great one, it speeds up the progress of whatever you're trying to get done. Now with overcharge, what it does is when you destroy a gen, when you smack a gen as the Doctor, overcharge will make it so that way there's only a great skill check success stone, and it happens, the skill check will occur as soon as they hop onto that generator, and if they fail it, it will actually digress that generator even further. Now this is great. I only have my overcharge at level 1 right now. I just recently prestiged my Doctor, and I've been unfortunate enough to not get a higher level of overcharge just yet. So right now I'm just rolling with overcharge 1, but that's fine, because overcharge on the Doctor is perfect. Here's why. Because with the Doctor, once they reach Madness 2 and Madness 3, the chances of their skill success zones, their skill check success zones being a little bit funky is increased, even with Madness 1. Now, what I mean by funky is, well, for one, it might not appear in the center of their screen where they're used to seeing the skill check. It could appear in a corner of the screen. Also, it won't be static, it will be wobbly, it will wiggle all over the place, and they have to pay very close attention to understand what's going on. Now with overcharge, if they're mad, it makes it so that way it's basically impossible for them to nail that skill check. Not saying that overcharge isn't a good perk in general for other killers, you can use it, but once they figure out that you've got it, they know you've got it. And that's basically where it stands. Once they see the sparks flying off the generator, they understand what's coming. They know that they're about to be hit by that very hard skill check, and they're ready for it to appear in the middle of their screen. But when you're playing as Doctor with overcharge, and this is why it's his perk, because even if they see those sparks flying, they're pretty much doomed at that point. They just have to take a deep breath and hope they manage to get lucky. Because more than likely what's going to happen is it's going to be very small. It's going to be in the corner of their screen that they didn't expect it to be in. It's going to be wiggling all over the place, and they will fail it almost 90% of the time, I promise you. They will not nail that skill check. And will it regress the skill, the generator, and also alert you to exactly where they are. So that's great. Overcharge is an absolute must for the Doctor. I personally, and I'm not a high tier killer, don't take my word for this. A lot of people, absolutely adore Hex Ruin. Hex Ruin is a great perk, don't get me wrong. But the problem with Hex Ruin is they can take that away from you. They can't take overcharge away from you. You smack a generator and that bitch is overcharged. And if you're playing as the Doctor, it becomes a little frustrating for them. So I highly recommend it. If you're going for a fuck your generator kind of build, try overcharge with Hex Ruin and Huntress's Lullaby, and then a fourth perk of your choice, preferably now with the revealing of the clown, or not the revealing, I should say the release of the clown. Also, Pop Goes the Weasel would be great. Those 4 perks in conjunction would make it absolute bullshit for the survivors to get any generators done. Moving on, I have Agitation. Now, Agitation is the lesser of the 2 transportation perks. I would much rather prefer Iron Grasp, but it's what I've got. I don't even have Iron Grasp. As I said, I just about a month ago prestiged my Doc. I haven't been playing that much Dead by Daylight. That's why he's only level 34. So right now I've got Agitation, and I've got its level 3, so I might as well use it. Thanatophobia because this is a really good perk. Now again, I would much rather have another perk that is ironically also from the nurse. I'd rather have a nurse's calling. Now here's why. With the doctor, whenever they get mad, particularly once they reach madness tier 3, they have to perform an action called snap out of it. Now, another survivor can't snap you out of it. You have to snap yourself out of it. And until you do that, you can't do any action. So you can't heal yourself, you can't use a flashlight, you can't use any item. Now I think you can still rescue survivors off the hook. I think you may be even still able to heal other survivors, and you can definitely still drop pallets and vault windows, do everything like that. But you cannot use a flashlight, you cannot use a key, I don't think, and you absolutely cannot heal yourself, which is fantastic. Now, the thing is, the snap out of it action is considered a heal action, so a nurse is calling, what this perk does is whenever a survivor is healing within such a radius near you, you'll be able to see their aura. Now since the snap out of it action is considered a heal action, if they're trying to heal themselves, heal another survivor, rescue another survivor off the ground in the dying state, or snap out of it, you'll be able to see them. You'll be able to see their aura. So a nurse's calling is a great perk for the doctor. I'm not going to be using it since I only have mine at level 1, and frankly at 20 meters range, I can see them just fine without being able, without needing this perk, basically. And moving on, last but not least, we've got Bloodhound. Now again, I would prefer some other perks here. I would prefer Deerstalker 3, but again, 24 meters, I can pretty much see them at this point. I actually prefer Bloodhound over Deerstalker, if I'm being completely honest. What Bloodhound does is it turns their blood this bright neon red that's unmistakable. Their blood stains appear for 4 seconds longer than usual once you've got it at tier 3, which I do. And compared to Deerstalker, which allows you to see their aura, now I have my Deerstalker at tier 2, I can see their aura if they're down in the dying state from 24 meters away. That's really good. But if they're trying to crawl away and do stuff like that, I'll be able to see them just as well with my Bloodhound. So that's kind of a little breakdown of the Doctor's perks, or well, the perk setup I like to use on Doctor. Obviously, it doesn't match the perk setup that I have right now. If I could choose the perfect perk setup for the Doctor, I would say Overcharge 3, Iron Grasp 3, Nurse's Calling 3, and then I would probably actually use something like Barbecue and Chilling, just because that's such a great perk and nobody can deny that one, its strength. Also, Remember Me is great. No-Ed is absolutely fantastic if you have No-Ed 3. I believe I have No-Ed, I just don't have it. Yeah, I have No-Ed 2. I just don't have it to level 3 yet. Now let's talk about add-ons. Now, I'm not going to sit here and break down, and you're going to be happy to hear this. I'm not going to sit here and break down what every add-on does for the Doctor. I'm only going to talk about the add-ons that I particularly like to use. I use this little combination called Calm and Order. Not Law and Order, Calm and Order. Okay, now what this does is it works really well at mid to low rank. It's not that effective high rank, but it's pretty good. It's not bad. Okay, so what Calm does is it moderately increases your terror radius. Okay, well not moderately. This is just Calm class 2. But what it does is it increases your terror radius once you're in treatment mode, and decreases your terror radius once you're in punishment mode. Now, if you're not familiar with those two different things, we'll probably get into that in game, but basically, punishment is when you're trying to hit them, treatment is when you're trying to shock them, and shocking is what gets them mad, so it's important. You don't have to shock them to get them mad. If you're in treatment mode, you have a little static field, and if they're near it, it slowly gains up their madness. Now, if you shock them, it tremendously gains their madness. That's basically what the two things are. We'll go over that a lot more in game, some tricks that you can use. Now, the reason why Calm is so important in my build is it's pretty obvious. You know, if I'm in a chase and I'm trying to make them mad or anything like that, you know, once I'm in treatment mode, I want my terror radius to be nice and big, because if they're inside that terror radius, they're gaining madness. Now, once I'm in punishment mode, it's kind of the other way around. I don't want everyone to know that I'm chasing that survivor, even though they're gonna know. But they don't know how close I am to them. So if I'm getting in slugging range, they might not necessarily know that. So this is a really good perk to have. Let's talk about order. Now, order is the pallet perk. So I'm just going to go ahead and sum this up. Basically, what order does is a survivor drops a pallet and you break it. And once you break it, them and every other survivor will still see that pallet there. They won't see the aura of it. You will. You'll see this golden aura of a pallet. And you know that that's a pallet that no longer exists. But they don't know that. They think that there's a pallet there that they can make it to, and they can drop it on you and be safe. Now this is where the Dockta gets very interesting. High ranked survivors will see straight through this bullshit. They won't fall for it. They'll call your bluff. They'll straight up call your bluff every time. And you know, if they're on comms, they're gonna say, oh, just so you guys know, he broke the pallet in the killer shack. That's a typical one, right? He broke the pallet in the killer shack. Don't go there. If you go there, don't fall for the pallet. It's not there. You know, that's all they have to say. They just have to communicate it very well, which pallet you broke, and from there it's pretty much obvious. Low-ranked survivors will not recall those kind of things. They won't communicate that sort of shit. And you can literally, I've done this so many times, I've seen one survivor drop a pallet, and I would break that pallet, and I would find that same exact survivor later on in the game, and they would go back to the same place and still try to drop that pallet. And sometimes it's actually hysterical. Sometimes you'll see a survivor stand in the middle of that pallet and try to drop it. And at that point, you're able to get a free hit on him. It's absolutely, it's fun. It's really nice. I love this little setup. And calm and order is by far, to me, the best perk setup that you can use at lower rank. Once you get in a higher rank, I would recommend doing Iridescent King and Obedience. Now, what these do, Iridescent King is a roll of the dice. Every time you shock someone, they gain an affliction. So all the Dockta's power-ups are afflictions. All these little classes that you see, anytime you see a Carter's note, these are all afflictions. Now, Obedience is the only exception. Obedience only comes in the Carter's note set. You won't find it in Class 1 or Class 2. Now, what the Iridescent King does is it compiles every other one of the Dockta's afflictions all into one add-on. This is absolutely brilliant. The only problem is it's randomized, so every time you shock them, they gain an affliction. You don't have to shock them multiple times. You shock them one time and a die is rolled, and they gain an affliction. They could gain Iridescent Order, which means that broken pallets may appear to be replaced with illusionary pallets that persist until approach. So that's the same as Order. They could receive Iridescent Restraint, tremendously increases the duration of Dockta illusions. Now, what that is basically whenever you make a survivor mad, you see this little illusionary Dockta appear, and it helps you track them down. Now, with the Iridescent King or with Restraint, those Docktas appear for longer. This is good. Iridescent Calm. Now, unlike Calm Class 2, which I have on, or Calm Carter's notes, where it makes it so that way if you're in treatment, they have a increased terror radius, and if they're in punishment, they have a decreased terror radius. No, with Iridescent Calm, they hear a constant heartbeat. So it doesn't matter. And it's a distant heartbeat. Now what this means, I didn't know this until just recently, but with Iridescent Calm, what it actually does is not only do they constantly hear the heartbeat, but it sounds as if they're on the edge of the heartbeat. They don't sound like you're close to them. They don't know that you're close to them. It sounds like they're on the edge of your terror radius, like they're just far enough to be safe, but they always hear it. It sounds like you're near them, but not close enough to hit them. And this can absolutely fuck with them. If they get that one, then they're dead. And Iridescent Discipline, excuse me. When the chase begins, they perceive the red stain, and you can see them too. So what the red stain is, you all know what the red stain is if you've ever played Survivor. You can see which direction the killer is facing. Now with discipline, it looks like the red stain is straight on their back at all times. And with the iridescent king, it never goes away until they snap out of it. So that's amazing. And then iridescent obedience, which, unlike what obedience actually does, is they are exhausted, indefinitely exhausted. So they can't sprint burst, they can't dead hard, they can't balance landing, and they can't life. That's broken. I love this add-on so much. Now let's talk about why you would pair this up with obedience, because it takes them an extra 2 seconds to snap out of it. So whatever affliction they get, if you shock the shit out of them enough, they'll get them all. And then it's going to take them an extra 2 seconds to snap out of it, and they'll also be exhausted. So this is great. This is a great setup right here. Iridescent King with obedience, and you throw a black ward on that shit just to protect it. Now let's get into a game. I'm sure you guys are sick of me talking, but this has been my guide to the Dockta. Now let's go ahead and see all of this shit in action. And here we are at the Rotten Fields Cold Wind Farm. And my Dockta is looking snazzy as ever. Now, anyways, let's get straight into it. First thing you want to do is switch to treatment mode. Now, when survivors, and I need to speak quickly, when they're a good group of survivors, what they're going to do is once you get near them, they're going to tear up in madness. And as soon as they tear up in madness, they scream. This is regardless how late into the game. But the only time it's noticeable is when they get into madness 1. Now, because of this, it's very easy for all the survivors to run towards you. So right there, unfortunately, I got 3 survivors all at once. That was very well of them. They definitely used the Shroud of Union or the Shroud of Binding in order to all get together like that. I messed up a little bit there, got stuck, that's fine. So she's been afflicted by multiple afflictions by now. She doesn't know what's going on. I'm gonna be able to get a hit here in a minute. Eventually, I'll hit her. I promise. That's embarrassing. It's all good. I'll hit her there. Okay, there we go. So now she's been hit. She's gonna break the window. Eventually, she's gonna do something. I want to go ahead and break this pallet, because remember the order. So that pallet there, everyone else who's mad is gonna see that pallet still, and that's important to note. Now, anyways, what I was saying is, it's important when you're playing against the Dockta as a survivor to all run towards him all at once. That's very important. The reason why you want to do that is because it's a very powerful tracking tool that he has, that once he gets near you and you tear up into madness for the first time, early game, that he can see you. He knows where you are because you scream. Now, in a situation like that where 3 of them were all in the same spot, it's not that good for me, because now I can walk around here and I'm not gonna find anyone like this. Be smart and be precarious in my ways. So I know they're on this gen right now. I'm gonna go ahead and shock. They left it. I'm gonna go ahead and smack it for the overcharge. And I'm gonna go ahead and leave and go back to her. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that when you're in punish mode, you have base killer speed. What that means is that you move at 115% speed, whereas the survivors move at 100% speed. Now, once you're in treatment mode, you don't move at base killer speed, you move at 110%, which is a little bit less. It's not too significant, but it's worth noting. Now, what he's doing here is he's being a good survivor. He's going towards me when I'm trying to shock him. Now, you can use this to your advantage. Good survivors do this all the time in order to avoid getting teared up into madness. Now, what you can do is do like I just did there and bait him. So watch this. I'll do it again. I'm going to make him think I'm going for the shock. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and shock him as soon as I get the chance. Go ahead and shock him there. Bait him out a little bit, and then go for the swing. So he didn't know what was going on. He didn't know if I was trying to shock him or hit him. And that's what let me hit him, because he didn't know if he should move towards me or away from me. If they're too close to you, you can't shock them. whereas you can hit them, but you have to be in one or the other mode, and they can tell which mode you're in. Now, I can see my illusionary doctor over here letting me know that Kate is over in this area, so I'm going to go ahead and chase her right now. She's still hurt, so this shouldn't be too hard for me. Plus, I have Bloodhound, and she's hauling ass, man. Can't say I blame her. Quite honestly. But she's gonna lead me to someone else. Here they are. Wasn't able to shock either of them, that's all good. I'm gonna go ahead and hit her, and I'll hook her again once I catch her. I'd imagine she's gonna give me a run for my money. And it's a good thing I have Bloodhound, because otherwise that would have been tricky and I'd have lost her right there, but I'm still hot pursuit right now. And there she is. Wait for her to vault that window. Go ahead and smack her there. Now she gets basement because of this. And the restraint, I believe it's the restraint. I always get restraint, discipline confused. But the restraint, I believe it is, that makes her perceive the red stain on her back consistently. That's what let me do this, because she didn't know where I was. She didn't see my actual red stain. She only saw it on her back, which is bad for her. Bad luck. She struggle hook. Looks like she just gave up. Yep, she just killed herself because she knows. Now, other person is over here. Go ahead and throw a shock that way. Overcharge this gen. Throw another shock over here. I can see him here. Go ahead and hit him, get him down. And he DC'd. So a lot of people think this build is broken. They know that they can't snap out of it. It takes forever to snap out of it. By the time they even try to, I'm going to be right there. Here's another thing. If they fail the skill checks that occur when they're trying to snap out of it, which, by the way, with the Iridescent King, it's a lot of skill checks and they're very hard to nail them. If they miss them, they have to start all over again. Also, if they forfeit the action at any time, it also makes them start all over again. So it's very important to keep that in mind. That's why the Obedience Carter's Note is so strong when you're using it with the Iridescent King. Because at that point, as long as you keep chasing them, they're never going to snap out of it. Now, these survivors are very nearby. They're playing very smart, but they have to be around here somewhere. I'm going to go ahead and switch to this. I'm going to check this locker and find Quentin. And I'm going to go ahead and put him on the hook. Now, a lot of people say that the Doctor is very easy to get a lot of points with, and I can't agree more. Doctor is not very hard to get points with. All you have to do is be good with him, just understand how he works and what the survivors think when they go against him. Now, me, as a killer main, I play a lot more of Doc than I play against him. But I do understand what it's like to play against him. I have played against him several times before in the past, and to my understanding, it is complete bullshit playing against a good Doctor, whereas playing against a bad Doctor, not so much. Now, this generator was bait. I'm not going to break it. I'm going to just go ahead and double back for the Quentin, because that's exactly where the survivor is going. And yes, they got him. And they just tried to go through the place where the pallet was. I know that because I saw the pallet supposedly break, right? So they're around here somewhere. I can't see the blood. I don't think this is the Quentin that I'm chasing. No, it's not. It's the Dwight. Now I can see blood. So this is the Dwight. I'm gonna go ahead and switch to treatment, and I'm gonna shock him. The reason why is because when I down him, I'm gonna need to remember where he is, and the illusionary doctors are gonna help me with that. I'll show you what I mean. Just go ahead and get him a little mad here. There's really nothing you can do about this. I can bully him for once, right? I mean, he he can move towards me and whatnot, that's fine. I'm still gonna land these shots. And miss that shot and hit that one. Now I can go find the Quentin. He's right there. That's the Dwight who's screaming. So that will happen. And on top of that, I'll also see the illusionary doctors appear. Now I need to find this Quentin before he reses the Dwight. He's probably already back on him. Yeah, so I'm gonna go check on that, make sure that he's still here. And there's Dwight. Okay, so there's the Quentin. Now I have it locked in. I know the Quentin's over here for sure. That's Dwight screaming. I'm looking for Quentin. Ah, there he is. So now all I have to do is down the Quentin. And I pretty much have the game won. 4 men. Easy. That's a dead end. No, dude. No. Just no. Just no. Now, watch this. I hook the Quentin. And I give it a couple of seconds, and there it is. See that doctor right there? That shows me exactly where Dwight is. And so does that scream, because he's gonna keep on screaming frantically because he's mad. So, and then I have the Bloodhound. Now, Deerstalker would work just as well, but I like Bloodhound because not only does it help you find people on the ground, but it also helps you find people during a chase. So there it is. Easy 4-man dock, easy peasy. Nothing to it. The Iridescent King mixed with Obedience, Carter's Note, is absolutely broken. There's nothing they can do about it. See, even though they were gen rushing me, I'm not sure if you were paying attention to that, but they got 3 generators done very fucking quickly in a short amount of time. I was still able to just come back and absolutely slaughter them. There was nothing they could do about it. There's really nothing they could do about it. And since I used my Black Ward, I'm guaranteeing that I'll be able to do this to yet another group of Survive with Friends again. This is extremely powerful, especially at the lower ranks. There's nothing, I can't emphasize it enough, there's really nothing they can do about it. Unless they're very smart, then they might be able to outplay you in some areas, but you should be able to at least pip every single time you use this setup. Now with Calm and Order, it's a little bit different. The only things that pretty much stay consistent is the pallets. The pallets mind games are infinite in nature, basically. You can do so much when they don't know where pallets really are and where pallets really aren't. It's so hard for them, and I know this because I've been on their side. The Calm kind of really messes with their mindset as well, because they don't know whether or not you're near, and they start believing, okay, well, I'm just mad right now, so as long as I snap out of it, I'll be okay. But the Calm will still linger, and they will still suffer the side effects of it. They still will hear a terror radius when they shouldn't. They'll still not hear a terror radius when they should, and it will confuse them, and eventually they'll just learn to stay on the lookout for you. And it doesn't matter if they hear a terror radius or not, they need to just be cautious. And because they're playing so cautious, they won't bully you anymore. That's the most important thing. So Calm and Order is just as viable, but if you do happen to get your hands on Iridescent King, save it. Don't use it until you get Obedience, Carter's Notes, and don't use it without a Black Ward. Use both of these in conjunction with a Black Ward, and then pretty much whatever perk setup you want. I used a perk setup that was great for me, and I was able to completely destroy the Survive with Friends group. They didn't stand a chance against me at this point, even though they gen rushed me, and they actually did really well early game. They fell apart extremely quick. and there's not much they can do. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. My name is Nachamiga97. Be sure to like and subscribe to the video. Also leave me a comment down below onto what your favorite part of the video was if you had one. And yeah, that's it guys. Stay calm and don't sleep. Peace.